Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome to Leather Brains. Your host, Slapdog, here, and we have another fun episode for you guys. I am not alone. I am joined by Scotty Del Rey. Alan Casanova Castro has ditched us for another podcast today, not in which he is partaking in. He is just a listener. So wanted to throw some shade on him for...
Without all the context, that's just a crazy thing to say. Like he just doesn't want to be here because he's listening to another podcast.
Yeah, which is the truth.
It is
and
true.
I understand. I'm sad that he's not here to join.
It's like
this
a live performance of a podcast.
I wasn't even going to give that context. I was going to make the people think like he just didn't get on because a new episode of his favorite podcast dropped and he's sitting at home,
on the couch.
Yeah, like listening to it. That's kind of what I was wanted out of that. But I've got you here, Scotty. And it's going to be a fun one. We're going to cover the news, of course, like we always do. There's preseason games are in full swing, so we're going to be discussing some of the storylines around these preseason games, as well as some of the news that's happening in training camps. And then we're going to continue the division breakdown today. I believe we're going to be talking about the NFC North. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one. I mean, I have this pegged as the hardest division in the NFL right now, so I'm really excited to talk NFC North with you and see kind of what we think about this division and how it's going to shake out. So before we do that, like I mentioned, we're going to cover the news, and we will start with a news story by the news. I don't know if you knew this, Scotty. The Falcons actually got another quarterback on their roster by the name of Michael Penix Jr. So WTOC Sports, a news network, they let autocorrect get the best of them in this one. They accidentally spelled Michael Penix Jr. instead of Michael Penix Jr. It was all around social media, quite hilarious, and it was bound to happen in my mind. I mean, this was something that you look at his name, you're one letter off. I think this was just bound to happen. So unfortunately, WTOC Sports was the first one to get it incorrectly.
Yeah, it's just the teleprompter guy, whatever that job is, had penis on the brain. It happens to the best of us. We all think about penis sometimes. Sometimes it just comes out.
I can't stop thinking about it.
Well, it doesn't just come out, actually. That could be like a crime.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no. It could be a crime. But yeah, so that happened alongside with ESPN's First Take host, Monica McNutt. Man, we got the penis jokes coming in full swing today.
McNutt is a sick last name.
I don't know if I would love that as a last name for myself.
Dude. I mean,
Slapdog
it would suck
McNutt.
when you're like an 8-year-old and everyone's like making fun of you in school, but eventually you mature into the name McNutt and you realize how fucking cool it is.
Your taste buds evolve and you are now pro McNutt. I feel like there's a lot of McDonald's jokes that Monica has obtained. Also, maybe she married into that name too. So maybe that's not her maiden name.
I don't know about her.
I don't know that much about
that might be a deal breaker, honestly, if you're a chick and the guy you want to marry's last name is McNutt, and you're like, nah, I don't know about this.
I think I'm going to keep my last name.
Yeah.
At any rate, she mistook Barry Sanders' jersey for Shedeur Sanders' jersey. I don't know if you saw that this weekend.
Yeah, it was with what's the comedian's name? Drewski?
Yes.
I don't know. It seems like he's a comedian for the younger generation more than me. But he seems funny. Anyway, he was wearing a Barry Sanders jersey, and the chick was, within the first, 5 seconds of him being on the show, she's like, so, I see the jersey you're wearing here, obviously, that's alluding to Shedeur Sanders. And he goes, no. I don't know if you know this, but this jersey is blue. Like, I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is wearing a blue jersey.
Maybe she's colorblind.
Oh, man. You think this is like ableism?
Could be.
We're gonna get canceled for making fun.
We
of
won't get. Look, we're not gonna get canceled. We're just talking about what happened. So there's, you can't put the fault on us here.
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. There's a chance maybe she's colorblind, or maybe she doesn't know what team Shedeur Sanders plays for,
or maybe what number he wears. There are a lot of context clues that she just kind of skipped over it just for the Sanders last name, which is a very common last name.
Trying to think. Those are really the only Sanders that comes to mind. So I don't know. I can't get on the train that Sanders is a common last name. But in the sports world, there's two that come to mind, being Barry and Shedeur, and Shedeur's family.
Yeah, Shedeur's probably got a lot of family.
I would have maybe.
It's more common than our last names.
That's true. We have very uncommon last names.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah. No, we do. We do. Minnesota Vikings, they add 2 male cheerleaders to their squad. This was something that had broke earlier last week about this. And there was reports that a lot of season ticket holders were canceling their season tickets because the Vikings have 2 male cheerleaders.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, which is completely comical to me because when I go to sports games, I'm not looking at the cheerleader. I'm there to watch the sport. So in the event that season ticket holders are, in fact, canceling their tickets because of the male cheerleaders, what were you going to the games for? Were you going to watch the sport, or were you going to watch these cheerleaders cheer on the team that you are also should be there to cheer for?
Well, here's the thing. The devil's advocate side to this, which I think is pretty stupid, but the devil's advocate side is there's only one reason the cheerleaders are there, and it's because it's a male audience. And like, that's literally the only reason. And I know you're going to piss off everybody, like, no matter which side you take or what point you make about this, because there are the people who are like, oh, the cheerleaders are professionals and they deserve all the respect and they should get paid way more money. They're only there because it's a male audience. That's like literally the only reason. So adding male cheerleaders to that is kind of goofy. But also, it's like every cheerleading squad throughout America at all levels has male cheerleaders, and they use them to like huck women in the air and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that big of a deal. But also, just get rid of all the cheerleaders. I don't give a shit. Like, why do we have cheerleaders at all? It doesn't make any difference. Like, you can even have like
marketing, Scotty.
Yeah.
Look at that. Like, you think about it, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Like,
yeah, but that's
growing
like the
up.
only
That's
one.
Yeah, well, sure. But like, they're obviously, you got to have like your A-listers, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. They made a Netflix TV show on the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. So yeah, that's like that's the mark to hit. But every team
also
has
made
to have
a
cheerleaders.
network TV show about Kim Kardashian doing absolutely nothing. Like,
That's also true.
they made a TV show about like the royal family, and it's just them living their lives. Like, who gives a shit? Like, that's not the standard. We go here to watch football. They make money because they play football. The cheerleaders are basically meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders make some money for the organization, but no other cheerleading team does that.
Well, we know.
Who cares?
We do know a couple professional cheerleaders that are in the sport.
They can
the
keep
NFL.
their jobs.
So maybe we should have them on as a guest and kind of give us some background and some more behind the scenes about what they do and how they feel about it, because I tend to agree with you. I think the cheerleaders are a non-factor for me. I'm not looking at the cheerleaders whatsoever. I'm looking at the sport. That's why I'm there. So for Minnesota Vikings fans to cancel their season tickets over having male cheerleaders is very comical to me, and just further showcases the stupidity of humanity that you're going to cancel your sports tickets because they have male cheerleaders. I think
especially
that's
right now. It's like prime time to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. You got the new quarterback. Like,
I know.
You got the best receiver in football. It's exciting at the very least. Like, even if the season kind of sucks, you at least are excited right now.
100%. And what you touched on earlier was one of the first things that came to mind when I saw this headline was this. Why is this breaking news? Like, there's male cheerleaders throughout all of cheerleading. No matter at what level you're at, there's always male cheerleaders hucking people in the air, or not even doing that, but just cheering. And it's like, why does this matter? It doesn't matter, I don't think.
I mean, I will say that when you watch a cheerleading squad, which admittedly I don't do very often, but if you're watching a cheerleading squad and they have male cheerleaders that aren't hucking the cheerleaders in the air, it's like, why are you here? Like, what is your role here? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's because you're a male. We are males. And like, when we're in the event that we are watching the cheerleaders, we're picking out which one's like the hottest one or the best answer or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't know. The whole cheerleading thing for professional sports doesn't make any sense. Like, it makes sense at the collegiate level, it makes sense at the high school level. For professional sports, like, they're not doing anything. They're not bringing any extra eyeballs. It's just kind of meaningless. It's like a participation trophy for people who just want to be loosely affiliated with the organization. They don't even make that much money. They all have to have other jobs.
That's true.
It's crazy.
That is true. No,
I don't
that is
understand.
Well, we're gonna keep moving here. What's because we probably just got canceled. What's worse than preseason football, Scotty? It's preseason football that ends in a tie. Yeah. That's the answer there. What a sad thing to happen. However, it was really funny. There were two fans that were fist fighting at the game, and the worst of all of this is one of the pro fighters in this video. He lost his pants. So I feel as if I can say this and we won't get canceled for it. They were two fat guys. And I'm a fat guy, so I can say that.
Yeah, no fat shaming.
We're not fat shaming here. They were two guys who had no business swinging their arms to begin with. And it was very funny to watch these two guys attempt to hit each other. And then at the start of this, one of the guys threw a drink at the other guy. And then they proceeded to fight. And then they both moved away from the slippage area and then somehow got back to the slippage area where they both proceeded to eat shit while they were trying to fight each other. So it was quite comical. But this, look, Scotty, we are devout NFL fans. We do this podcast every single week. We have been doing it for years. We are plugged into the NFL on a week-to-week basis. There is no chance or reason that anybody should be fist fighting at an NFL game at all. Like there's zero reason for that to happen. I don't understand why this continues to happen. It's great for entertainment purposes, but I just don't get why we have to get so worked up over a preseason tie game that two obese men are swinging on each other. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I could foresee a reasonable fight at an NFL game, but it can't have anything to do with football. It's like if some dude, slaps your wife on the ass or something like that.
Well, why are we slapping wives on the ass?
I agree. I mean, that could happen anywhere. You got douchebags doing crazy things. And then, if that happens and then you get into a fight and someone starts recording, then you look like the douchebag who's fighting at an NFL game, even though it's totally reasonable for you to get into a physical altercation in that circumstance. But I think 99.9% of these fights are two idiots who are drunk and start talking shit on each other's football teams. And it's like, I love football as much as the next guy, but like anything else, it can get a little bit over the top. It's like people who are grown adults who have Yu-Gi-Oh posters in their bedroom. It's like what you like, but just tone it down a notch. Football's the same way. Just be a reasonable dude. You don't have to be crazy about it.
They clearly were not. Browns announced their quarterback one to start the season, Scotty, and that being... You have a guess? They have 4 quarterbacks on roster, being Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco. Who's it going to be?
Well,
who did they announce?
It's tough to pass up on Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? He's got those gloves on. He can totally grip the ball with his small hands because he's got gloves on.
Yep.
But it's got to be Joe Flacco.
It is Joe Flacco.
We all knew this was going to happen. At least this was the most likely outcome because the only way that this didn't happen is if Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur was just like lights out in the preseason or in camp. Like if they made such a statement that they couldn't ignore it, okay. But Joe Flacco is obviously the correct decision to make at the beginning of the season. And when it inevitably goes to shit, I love Joe Flacco, but this team's going to suck. Then you have an opportunity to put in the young guys and give them an opportunity when there's nothing really to fight for. Nobody's going to be mad about it.
So to piggyback off what you just said, you do think that at some point we are going to see one of the rookies come out and finish the remainder of the season, probably?
Yeah, when you've got 4 quarterbacks, all of whom, have very low floors and fine ceilings, you're going to give them all a shot. I mean, what do you have to lose? Like Joe Flacco, I think, is the best quarterback in the room, but he's also a billion years old, and he's very clearly a transition quarterback. That's obviously what they have him there for. So it's only a matter of time before they have to test what they have. I mean, that's just common sense. So eventually you're going to see someone get in there. Of course, there's the added flavor of Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, talking to cameras about things that could loosely be related to Shedeur Sanders if you contort yourself into a pretzel. But like there's all this media stuff. But at the end of the day, like you got a couple rookies, you got a relatively young guy in Kenny Pickett, you're going to see what you got.
Yeah, and Shefty just yesterday had when he reported this news had even said or alluded to that the Browns are going to keep all 4 quarterbacks on roster for the moment, which is something that is very, very unusual for NFL teams. Typically, you will see 3 quarterbacks on roster, and we were all kind of holding our breath to see who's going to get cut. Which one of these quarterbacks is going to get cut? For me, I thought it was going to be Kenny Pickett because they drafted these 2 young quarterbacks. They want to see what they have in them. But Shefty had said, hey, he kind of had a little smirk on his face, and he said they're going to keep all 4 of them, and potentially maybe one of the rookies gets traded. And so whether he knows something or not that maybe we don't, that was an interesting thing that was said. And Shefty being Shefty, that maybe he is plugged into a little bit of insider information. Are any teams calling for a rookie quarterback? Is there any teams that you could see that would potentially want Gabriel or Sanders that come to mind for you?
I mean, I don't know about anyone in particular just because we don't know what these quarterbacks are yet. I will say, given the fact that Shedeur was taken so late in the draft, it would not surprise me if any team was looking to acquire him because they're not going to have to pay that much to get him because he was relatively low draft capital. They have a billion quarterbacks. So in the event that they're interested in moving on from one of those quarterbacks, someone like Shedeur is very interesting to me. And I know Dillon Gabriel has some promise and all this stuff as well, but just given Shedeur's draft stock, it makes sense that somebody wants to just take a shot on him because it's low-hanging fruit. I think it would make the most sense for the Browns to take that shot on him, but if they want to move on from somebody, then that might make sense too.
I could see maybe like the Seahawks, even though they did draft Jalen Milroe, so I think he's probably a lock for them as far as like their backup to see if they have anything.
There are a lot, even if a team has an established quarterback, having someone like Shedeur, might just be a fun option that you have, or someone if you're nearing the end of your quarterback's contract. Yeah, I mean. The Jets are a great example. Like, just grab him, see what you got, and then worst comes to worst, he fizzles into nothing. But, like, you're not going to have to pay that much to get him. It's the same reason I said it was a good idea for the Browns to draft him where they did. Like, they kind of played – everyone talked – the whole storyline around the draft was, oh, Shedeur must suck, and everybody doesn't want to deal with the bullshit. But in reality, the Browns could have got him way earlier in the draft. They ended up basically getting – spending nothing to get him. And now they have the same quarterback that everyone kind of thought they were going to get, but they got him way later. So it was kind of a genius move. And if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. No lost.
I think the most likely outcome is all the quarterbacks suck, and none of all of them in 2 years from now are a non-factor in the NFL. If I was to look at the most probable outcome, that's what I would peg. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I think that in the realm of possibility, that is the one that is most likely in my mind. And
yeah, we're gonna have to see them on the field against starters. Shedeur looked good, and Dillon Gabriel also looked decent against second stringers. We just have to wait and see if they have some potential because you don't have to be a superstar in the NFL to be in the league for a long time. And they might be superstars, but more than likely they're going to be someone who's maybe a backup quarterback or maybe someone who jumps around, a journeyman type quarterback. And I think it's possible that all of them, maybe assuming Joe Flacco doesn't keel over before then, they could all fill that role.
Yeah. Matthew Stafford is back. Hold on. That was my knee slapper. That was his back is what's causing him problems. But he's back at practice, Scotty, which is good. Good news for Rams fans. Good news for anybody who is rostering any of the Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, Kyron Williams shares in fantasy football. But he's back at practice for the time being. Obviously, the storyline there is his back has been causing him issues all offseason. So he's back with the Rams. But really the funny thing is Davante Adams really can't catch a break since he left Green Bay. And I kind of want to highlight this is I think this is hilarious is, Davante Adams, he left Green Bay and he went to the Raiders. And his quarterback at the time was Jimmy G. Davante Adams, I will say professionally, voiced his frustrations with Jimmy G and the fact that Jimmy G is not a good quarterback, which I laughed a lot. It was comical to me that the Raiders signed Jimmy G to begin with because I never thought Jimmy G was a good quarterback, and Raiders fans are like, oh, we have a decent quarterback here. He was terrible, which I saw coming from a mile away. And so now the funny thing is Davante Adams, he's gone through the ringer and went to the Jets, free agent, went to the Rams, and was playing with Jimmy G again when Matthew Stafford was out with his back. So in the event that, Matthew Stafford misses any time this season with any sort of injuries, his back or otherwise, looks like it's going to be the Davante Adams Jimmy G show. And Davante Adams actually asked, or kind of, reporters were asking him a little bit about this. And he's like, no, I don't have any hate for Jimmy G. He goes, it was more of the situation at the Raiders that we found ourselves in. And I think that was probably the right thing to say from a PR perspective, but you can't be excited to have Jimmy G as your quarterback when you have someone like Matthew Stafford also around. Like just it's a non-factor.
Well, every starting receiver is in that conundrum. If your starting quarterback goes down, who you got? I mean, that's the situation they're all in. And as far as backups go, Jimmy G's fine.
Sure.
He can get the job done. And I think Davante actually what he said to the media is correct. I think we saw what Jimmy G could do in a good offense when he was with the 49ers, and it was fine. He was serviceable. He got the ball where it needed to be, and you put him on the Raiders with nobody except Davante, and you're going to be disappointed. I mean, this is what it is. It's just the Raiders' current state, I guess not current, for a long time now.
Yeah, I think this year, I'm excited for the Raiders. I've said that before. I think their offense is going to be a lot better than it has been in years past. But
the defense is going to suck, though. It's going to be hilarious.
I don't think their offense is. Their defense is not.
Their defense is going to suck.
Yes.
Their offense is going to be better, but that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
Genty was fun in the preseason. He had that one truck stick on that one dude.
Which is a lot better than his week one. He did not look great week one.
Yeah.
It was pretty abysmal. Caleb Williams, he only did 2 preseason drives, Scotty, and it's preseason, so I don't want to get too. I don't want everybody to think that preseason is the end all be all. Anybody who's followed the NFL knows that preseason is largely meaningless, but Caleb Williams went 6 for 10, 130 yards and a touchdown, had 130 passer rating. He looked good.
Mm-hmm.
He looked
We're Bears
good.
podcast this year.
We are a Bears podcast this year, so we can give a little bit of gas here. We can pour some fuel on the flame.
Yeah, the bigger thing here is in the small sample size that we got of some starters on this offense. For all the shit talked, honestly, a lot of it by Ben Johnson in the preseason during camp and stuff, saying that everything looks sloppy. It looks sloppy. We're not where we need to be. It didn't look sloppy at all. Like
it looked good.
And that was the thing I took away from it is that, okay, Ben Johnson might have some command of these guys. Like they came out and they executed. And here's the thing. I know it's preseason, but the best result in preseason is your starters come out, they're out there for a drive or two, and they just kick ass. And that's exactly what happened here. We saw them do exactly what they needed to do to instill confidence in the fan base. So that's all you can ask. The Chiefs did the same thing. They had the starters out for one drive. They went down, scored a touchdown, took them off the field, and it's like, hell yeah, that's all I wanted to see out of this whole thing. So I am very excited for Caleb Williams. I really hope he takes that step forward. I hope Ben Johnson is all he's been, cracked up to be. I'm still a little skeptical about him and, just given the fact that he had a lot of success, but it was with one of the best rosters in the NFL. And it's like, okay, what can you do on this roster? But so far, so good.
So far, so good. I'm going to shelve my opinions for when we talk about the NFC North, so I don't want to show my hand too early on this one. But if we're going to highlight Caleb Williams, I think it's only fair that we also throw some praise to Bullseye himself. That's what I've nicknamed Jaxson Dart as Bullseye.
It's a sick name.
Yeah, I think
it's also
a pretty
the name
cool
of the
nickname.
horse in Toy Story, I think.
That is true. Yes. Different
Good company.
Well, yeah, it is. he's Jaxson Dart's in good company. He's the horse from Toy Story. That's his nickname. They played against the Jets, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to see this game whatsoever, but Jaxson Dart, I thought, looked really well. He went 14 for 16 for 137 yards. And, we on this podcast, you, myself, and Alan have kind of gone back and forth on what we think is likely with the Giants. And, the Giants have pretty much, they haven't said it, but it seems like in the NFL community, it largely looks like Russell Wilson is going to be the starter all season long. Has your train of thought changed at all as far as what, will Jaxson Dart start this season, or where draw your line in the sand? Has it changed at all, I guess is really my question.
Well, I said this on one of the episodes where you were gone. It was me and Alan. I think that the only positive thing that can come out of the season for the Giants, because their team is kind of ass. They got some weapons now, so maybe we'll see a few explosive plays here and there. They have the hardest schedule in the NFL. I think that the only positive that's going to come out of the season is fans come away saying, at least we got a quarterback. And in order for that to happen, Jaxson Dart has to play. So I think it's a matter of time before Jaxson Dart does play. I said it, a few weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again, that Jaxson Dart may or may not be good, but when you're in the front office there or you're on the coaching staff there and you're looking at the fans and they're all pissed because you're getting smoked in probably more than half the games that you're playing, just not even in the game at all, you got no choice but to put in Jaxson Dart and just hope that he can instill some confidence in the fan base and say, okay, at least we got a quarterback. And that's also, by the way, the only way that Brian Daboll keeps his job. It's the only way that Joe Schoen keeps his job. As much as I don't blame Brian Daboll for all the stuff that's happened there, it's like at some point they're going to have to pull the plug. And if they get blown out in like 12 games this season and they win 2 games, which is pretty likely given their schedule, he's going to be gone. So the only hope, it's literally like the final straw, the last thing that they can do. He's breaking the glass on the emergency button. You got to put in Jaxson Dart, and you just got to hope that he performs.
You do. And I've said this before. I mean, the Giants have won both of their preseason games, which means nothing. But I'm still saying I think week week 5, week 6. I mean, you look at it, they've got Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers to open up for the first 4 weeks. They're going to lose all these games, I think. I really do. So you're going to start 0-4. I think there's a really high chance that in week 5 when they play the Saints, which is a game that they should be able to at least compete in, why would you not play Jaxson Dart there? I think week 5 is a good time to roll out your rookie, let him get some valuable reps, and then let him lose to the Eagles the week after. Because just like, and this has been a continuous conversation, and we're pretty much just regurgitating our thoughts that we have previously said, but I do think Jaxson Dart is, you have to see, because if you, just like you said, if you don't have that quarterback, your job is done. And that's really what it boils down to. So I still think, I'm going to say week 5, Jaxson Dart is the starter for the Giants.
The only way that doesn't happen, I don't know about week 5, but at some point, probably before the halfway point of the season, the only way that doesn't happen is if Russell Wilson steps into a time machine and magically transforms into like an MVP version of himself, which on this team seems pretty much impossible. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, it's got to be Jaxson Dart at some point in time, just to give people hope, because that's literally all you have if you're a Giants fan at this point in time.
Well, and this kind of goes into my next question. Do the Jets have any hope at all? Justin Fields, he went 1 for 5 for a grand total of 4 yards, finishing with a 20% completion rating. As somebody who, this feels like I'm picking on you, but I'm genuinely curious as to your thoughts. I'm trying not to pick on you, but you've said that you were excited for Justin Fields. You're excited for what this team could offer, and with Justin Fields, and now we're seeing it. And once again, this is preseason, so I don't want to overreact. I don't want to get too crazy, but it's not looking great.
Well, here's my thought. First of all, I'll reiterate what I said before, which is Justin Fields is not going to be spectacular, but I think he's going to have the best season of his career, because this is a team that's going to really suck, I think. They got a lot of weapons, though. I don't see them with their schedule, having a ton of success. But I think that Justin Fields, this is the best team that he has been on, so he is going to have more success than he's had with other teams. However, you can't draw literally any conclusions from 5 pass attempts, which I think this is a pretty big red flag for the coaching staff, in my opinion. You got Justin Fields, you got this new quarterback, you want to see what he can do, you want to see if he can make anything happen on this team. Why are you only letting him throw the ball 5 times? Like, that's insane. Like, you need to actually run your offense and keep Justin Fields on the field and see what he can do. Give him some live reps. Let him throw to these new weapons. The fact that they only scripted 5 passes and then removed him from the game is crazy. Like, they definitely should have left him in there a lot longer than that.
So do you think that they should have started him the entire game? Like, is that kind of where you're at? Because Justin Fields, I mean, that's not good. 1 for 5 for 4 yards is abysmal. I've said before, Justin Fields cannot read a defense. He can't throw the ball. So in my mind, if I was the Jets, why would you not start him for the entire game? Why would you not just let him get those valuable reps to try and, go over film, et cetera, et cetera? In your mind, should they have started him the entire game?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, a couple quarters. Like, keep him in there and let him actually run the offense. Only giving him 5 attempts to throw the ball is absurd. Like, there's, and it's only the second week of preseason. Maybe he'll get some more time. I don't know, but it seems that's a big red flag for me from the coaching perspective. Like, everybody knows the situation you're in. We know Justin Fields' career. We know it's been lackluster in terms of his, throwing ability. Let him get live reps and see what you got and see what you can work on and build on it, because I guarantee you that throwing against your, practice defense, during the week is just not the same thing as under the lights with cameras on him. Like, let him get comfortable.
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to jet. I think I can't, it's hard for me to see a path in which I think Justin Fields would be great for fantasy football because he can run the ball, but he can't throw the ball. I think it's just going to be a large non-factor, and it's going to be rather
over or under 3,000 yards passing.
Under.
By how much?
I think I would say over on 2,500. I would say under on 3. 2,750. I'll take the over. So
if he throws for 2,800 yards and rushes for 800 yards, is that a success?
Depends on the record.
Well, the
I mean,
record's
it
gonna be
does.
ass. The record's going to be ass.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That's the problem is we know the Jets are going to be asked. We know that they're not going to find success. And so what do they do to change it? Well, every single team, it starts with the quarterback position. We were just talking about the Giants and how they're not going to find success and how we're going to have to see Jaxson Dart. Look at the Commanders. I mean, going into last season, nobody had the Commanders as an up-and-coming team. And Jaden Daniels was able to completely shift the entirety of that organization because he came in and he's a good quarterback. It's the most important position in the NFL. It's the most important position on the field. And when you have a lackluster, mediocre quarterback, it really kind of sets the standard for what your franchise is going to be because your ceiling is capped. And I think with Justin Fields, your ceiling is severely capped. And so even if he does play out the entire season for the Jets, which I think is a very likely outcome, he's still not a long-term solution for them. And I think that's just the reality of this situation. And, now if they come in and they win games they shouldn't be, and he's doing an incredible job, then this conversation it's a moot point because then he might be the guy for them in the future, at least for the next few years. I just don't see that happening. I don't see Justin Fields. We have seen him plenty of times, and I'll go back to what I said on a prior episode. He got benched for Russell Wilson when he was with the Steelers. And I had made a video kind of detailing and outlining his statistics, what he was doing, and why he got benched is because he can't throw the ball and he can't read a defense. And the fact that, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers recognized that once Russell Wilson was healthy, he's going to be their starting guy, that should tell us a lot. That should tell us a lot because Russell Wilson wasn't a good quarterback. Russell Wilson was usable, but the fact that Russell Wilson, at his age and his ability level, outcompeted and took over the starting role from Justin Fields, I think speaks volumes about who and what Justin Fields is as far as his quarterback play.
Yeah, I think he just needs more confidence. He hasn't been, even the Steelers' offense is not as good on paper as the Jets' offense in terms of the weapons there and the talent that he has to work with.
Is it though? Is it? And the reason I asked that question is last year they had George Pickens, right? And this, him now being with the Jets, he's got Garrett Wilson, which is an upgrade. But who are all the other wide receivers, right? Like the Steelers didn't have a great wide receiver too. The Jets have Alan Lazard as a wide receiver too. You have Breece Hall there, who is going to presumably be traded, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. That's kind of been a talk of the town. So, and then he's had Najee Harris, and so I think when you look at it on paper, I think they're more similar than we initially kind of think about when it comes to these offenses.
Yeah, maybe. I just think that when you compare this team to his Bears situation and with the coaching staff there and the constant turmoil, like, yes, the Jets are nothing to sneeze at. And again, all of this is kind of splitting hairs because I don't think the Jets are going to win a lot of games. I just think that Justin Fields is going to look a little bit better than what people expect out of him. We just need him to get more reps, more than 5 throws in a preseason game, which is crazy.
That is crazy. That why are you protecting this guy? Like, your organization's already not in a favorable spot, and the fact that we already have our hesitations about Justin Fields being able to read a defense and throw the ball, and you only give him 5 snaps, give him a half, give him a quarter, give him more than 5 snaps, because that to me is pretty outlandish. But we'll move on here and keep talking about quarterbacks. This is a direct quote from Shane Steichen, the head coach for the Colts. He said, "I'm very close. I'll say that. I'm very close." And he was not whispering in his wife's ear when he said this. He was talking about the quarterback battle between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. So it's been an ongoing thing all offseason long. There's a quarterback battle between the two of them. There's been so many memes thrown around about how sad it must be to be a Colts fan and have to watch this play out. But Shane's close. He's very close, Scotty.
God, I've been waiting so long to hear him say that. But he's just so close.
He's edging.
He's definitely edging for Anthony Richardson.
You think so?
No, I don't actually know the answer to that. My thought was, and I think probably still is, I mean, granted, Anthony Richardson already had a little pinky injury, which was just icing on it. It's just the perfect situation for him because the upside, I think, is with Anthony Richardson. He's got the crazy cannon of an arm. He's got the athleticism. He's a freak of nature. But if he can't stay healthy, then he's useless, right? I think that it would make sense for them to start with Richardson and just see if they can get him on track, because he's got the upside, in my opinion. He's younger. He's someone that you could see potentially being able to invest in some way, at least in like a gadget type quarterback that you can build a weird offense around that's tough to scheme for. But he hasn't demonstrated that he can stay healthy yet. So you want to find that out as soon as possible. Let's put him in there. Let's let him run with the offense for a while. And if he just keeps getting injured or keeps just walking off the field because he's tired or sad or whatever, then you can go with Daniel Jones. And I think everybody expects Daniel Jones to be sort of a bridge quarterback there. Daniel Jones has had a good season. He's one of those guys that if the situation is right, he can do some things, but I think everybody has realistic expectations for this team, which is they don't have their quarterback yet.
Do you? This one's really interesting to me, and I think depending upon who Shane, I don't want to call him by his last name because I feel like he hasn't deserved that honor from me yet. Okay. Depending upon who Shane chooses as his quarterback, I think it's going to be really interesting because we were talking about Jaxson Dart, Russell Wilson, right? And how Russell Wilson's going to start the season, and by the end of the season, Jaxson Dart will be starting at some point in time. We think that that's the most likely outcome, which is it should be. It almost feels like, in my mind, you should want Daniel Jones to start, because once you go to one guy, you can't go back to him unless injuries happen. So in that way, why don't you start with Daniel Jones, right? And give him the opportunity to screw up and or succeed. And I think the most probable outcome is that he will screw up. And then you can make that change to Anthony Richardson. And then that way, I mean, you drafted the guy at the third overall pick just 2 or 3 years ago. You have a lot of stake that this guy's going to be or should have been your guy of the future. And then that way you kind of give him the opportunity versus week 4, week 5, when the masses are coming, when Colts fans and NFL fans and the masses of people are coming saying, why has there not been a quarterback swap? Well, then that way you can at least give Richardson more time to see if you have something in him, because we know what Daniel Jones is. I mean, we do. And that's not to say that he can't offer a bridge quarterback-esque play style, but would you not want to see if Richardson's your guy for the future? So in my mind, I think I would rather have Daniel Jones start versus Richardson, because once you swap them, it's going to be very, very difficult to go back.
Well, this is why Shane is close and hasn't finished yet, because he's having this debate in his head right now. But to me, it makes the most sense to say if Anthony Richardson can't stay healthy, he's literally useless. So find that out right now, because the last thing you want is to start Daniel Jones. He kind of sucks. You put in Anthony Richardson. He plays a game or two. He gets out injured for the rest of the season. And then you're like, okay, do we keep Anthony Richardson? Do we not keep Anthony Richardson? Like we switched to him because Daniel Jones sucked. So like it still kind of leaves you up in the air. Whereas you start Anthony Richardson, if he can't stay on the field, he's done. And you just get rid of him and you're ready to move on. I think Alan makes this point a lot, which is a good one. Teams are sometimes too slow to make these decisions. And we've already seen with Anthony Richardson, he's just not reliable. Like you say, we know what Daniel Jones is, but we also know what Anthony Richardson is, which is on a stretcher and all the time. So if he's incapable of playing the game, then you can move on and you can start looking toward the future and looking at future drafts. But if you don't play Anthony Richardson to start and you kind of get this wishy-washy situation, then you're just left in limbo still. Like, do we draft a quarterback? Do we give Anthony Richardson another shot? It wasn't his fault, Our team sucked because of Daniel Jones and he was trying to pick up the pieces. I don't think you want to be in that situation. So I think the most prudent option is to start Richardson, give him one last hurrah, and if it doesn't work out, he's done. He's out.
Okay. Let's go over to trade rumors, because there's been quite a few within the last week to week and a half regarding quite a few big name NFL players here. And we're just going to brush on it. We're going to talk. We're going to see if there's any teams that come to mind or if the probability of them being traded is high or low. So we'll start with Trey Hendrickson, who, this is been going on all offseason long. And for those who don't know who Trey Hendrickson, oh my gosh, he was the sack leader for the Bengals last year, defensive lineman. He's a little up there in age, and he wants a renegotiated contract just because he found a lot of success for the Bengals defense last year. Contract talks currently are going nowhere, and the Bengals are now actively listening to trade offers for Hendrickson. So that is confirmed that the line is open and they are fielding phone calls for him. There have been a couple teams that have called on him. And we'll see maybe in the coming days, maybe by the time this goes live, we might have a different result and he could be signed somewhere else. But are there any teams that kind of come to mind that would benefit the most from signing Hendrickson? Do you think the Bengals should move on from him? What are your thoughts and opinions on this?
I guess first things first is a lot of times you've heard me say when you're on a team that's competing for Super Bowls, just suck it up, take a little bit less money because you want to do this. But I don't really feel that way about Trey Hendrickson because he was the entire defense, and the rest of the defense was like worse than ass, just absolutely abysmal. So if you're in his shoes, you're like, do I want to go through this again and miss the playoffs because the rest of my team is so bad? Like we have Joe Burrow, we have all these weapons on offense, but we just can't make the playoffs because our defense is so bad. I don't really blame him for being like, pay me or I'm out. Like this isn't worth it. So I'm with him on that front, and he definitely deserves to be paid a lot of money, at least from the Bengals organization, because all he did for them, which, granted, wasn't winning a lot of games, but it left you with the impression that, like, oh, that's the one person on this team that can actually play. So I don't blame him for at all. I also, the Bengals are just totally invested in their offense, and they can't really afford to be paying superstars on the defensive side of the ball, that's the situation they found themselves in. I said many times that I didn't think they should re-sign T. Higgins, as awesome as he is and as fun as he makes that offense. It's like you have to address the defensive problem or you're not going to go anywhere, and it's going to be an issue. Like it's difficult to just outrun everyone in the NFL. You have to have a defense. Defense wins championships, as they say, and it's true. So I don't necessarily blame the Bengals, I guess, for getting rid of him because they sort of made their bed and now they have to lie in it. As far as teams that he would go to, the one team that pops into my head, and I know it's not realistic probably because of the whole Kirk Cousins situation, but is the Falcons. The Falcons need pass rushers, and they're a team that's kind of hopefully on the up and up, and we're hopefully going to see, Michael Penix take a step forward and the offense look a little bit better, and if they can get some pass rushers in that can actually make some big plays on defense, they might be a real team. And, they're in a position, as we've talked about many times, that they just have to be kind of average or a little bit better than average to compete for that division and actually have a clear-cut path to the playoffs. So adding someone like Hendrickson, adding a superstar pass rusher could really benefit that team. That's the first one that jumps out at me.
The two that I've seen floated around quite a bit, and I don't know if this is confirmed or not as far as the calling, but I've seen both the Panthers and Patriots call on him. Don't love that landing spot for either, or for him. I don't love that landing spot for him for either of those teams. I have seen this float around. I don't think it's actually confirmed, but I saw the Lions, and I was like, that would be fun.
Just
him and Aiden
like
Hutchinson. That it is, and to be quite honest with you, you should go do something like that. Well, you have all these young guys on rookie contracts, and you don't have to pay. I say that you're kind of teetering on the edge of that, but regardless, Hutch isn't making superstar money yet. Go sign another big guy and just have a dominant defensive line. That would be incredible. So it's going to be interesting. Do you think that by the start of the season he'll be wearing a different jersey?
It seems like it's going in that direction. I mean,
okay.
I said it already, but the Bengals just can't really afford the big money on defense, even though they really need it. And Trey obviously is not going to take less than what he wants from that team just because of all that he did. So it seems like it's leaning that way. What's really interesting is how difficult he's going to be in negotiation with other teams in terms of the length of the contracts. Because obviously he's not super young, but he feels like he was one of the best in the league, so he wants some stability, and it's hard to blame him for that. But when you bring up the Lions, the first thing that comes to mind is if I'm Trey, I'll take a 1-year deal. Let me go play on this team for 1 year and see what we can do, and see if I can earn an extension. Because the opportunity is awesome. You're going to play on a defense that's actually really, really fun. All the players love Dan Campbell, so it's like that situation might be worth making a little bit, not a 1 or 2 year deal instead of trying to go for a 3 or 4 year deal. But if he is really strict on that, it might be hard for him to find a place anywhere because he's one of those guys. He's not like Micah Parsons. I mean, he's great, but he's one of those guys that just because of his age and because you're just not really sure how long he's going to be good for, that if he starts saying, hey, I want a 3 or 4 year deal or I'm out, he might not find many buyers.
Yeah, and that's where the Patriots and Panthers come to mind as far as they have the cap space, they have a lot of issues, and so trying to shore up anything
I think
you're
the
probably
Patriots
going to
could be fun.
Maybe
I think him and Mike Vrabel might get along.
Yes,
it could be a good match.
Yeah, that one I would agree with that more than the Panthers per se, but I guess we'll see. I don't think he'll be a Bengals to start the season. I don't think he will be a Bengals, so we'll see what happens there. But keeping the trade rumor train rolling, Brian Robinson. He will not be playing on Monday night's preseason game, as both him and the team have mutually agreed that he won't play due to a potential trade. So all indicators are pointing towards Brian Robinson as another guy who will probably be offloaded off this roster, which is kind of interesting to me because you look at this roster. The Commanders, my biggest qualm with the Commanders, and I've said this before, is their age. You look at the age of the median age of this roster, and it's the oldest team in the NFL. And I think that, I do expect the Commanders to be good, but really where I think that this is going to fall apart for them is if they start losing key players to injury. And, Scary Terry, who is another person who, it's a loose rumor, but, he's a potential trade candidate. And, it's no surprise McLaurin had requested a trade from the Commanders due to this continued contract dispute between them because he wants to get paid like a wide receiver one. He's been with the team forever. So, are the Commanders going to move on from both Brian Robinson and Scary Terry? I lean towards no on the Scary Terry, yes on the Brian Robinson. But Brian Robinson, not an A-list running back, not a guy he's not a world breaker. He did get shot at one point and came back a lot quicker than I think any of us imagined. That is pretty sweet. I'm glad he, wasn't dead.
He proved he's a beast. But the Brian Robinson thing, to me, kind of makes a lot of sense. Because he's just not the running back that fits this new offense. This is an offense that wants to be explosive. They want to be able to, run a lot of play actions. They want to be able to use. Here's what you need out of a running back. You need a Isaiah Pacheco in that offense. You need someone who is going to be a great pass blocker and can catch the ball in space and make some moves and make things happen. You need a James Cook. Like you need a running back who.
You need an Austin Eckler. Who they do have.
You need an Austin Eckler from like 6 years ago.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's the problem with it. Because Eckler does fit the offense really, really well, but obviously he's really old. So you can't expect him to be a workhorse. They do have a bunch of young running backs that nobody knows anything about because we don't know anything about that depth on the chart. But paying Brian Robinson just doesn't make a lot of sense because the one thing you take away from him is he's just not explosive. Like he averaged like 4.1 yards per carry. Like he's just not someone who makes big plays. He's a good running back. He's sort of a system running back, but he's not a big play running back. And you need a guy who, you can throw the ball in the flat and they might break it for 90 yards. Like that's what you need in that offense, in the sort of West Coast fast-paced offense with Jaden Daniels. So it doesn't make it's not a huge surprise that they're looking at moving on from him. And even having a committee of young running backs that are at least going to be a little twitchier than maybe some of the older guys, and then Austin Eckler, who has the experience, it makes some sense. Terry McLaurin is a whole nother thing, though, because, again, he's a great wide receiver. He's a staple of that organization. He's not super young anymore. I actually don't – how old is Terry McLaurin?
I want to say 29. I'll double check.
Yeah, so he's someone who's like kind of teetering on the edge where he's definitely going to be usable for this year and maybe
29.
Another couple years.
He'll be 30 in September, mid-September.
Yeah, so he's just one of those guys that you definitely – it's easy to imagine them maybe making a deal that is not the smartest, but just because he's a staple of the team and losing him I think would cause a lot of problems. And plus, he's still really good. So, it's probably worth it for them to keep him around. Especially when you've got a young quarterback who's, still getting into his stride and figuring it out. Like having someone like Scary Terry there is a pretty big deal. So I think they'll end up keeping him around.
Yeah, I struggle to see a world in which this Commanders team is at the explosive level that they want it to be at without Terry McLaurin. So, and there's qualms, right? He's old. He's a declining asset. He's somebody who has perhaps reached the peak of his, and you can argue last year was the peak, but I mean, he's an aging asset, right? So in the event that, he probably wants a 3-year deal and for a good chunk of money, and are you going to get that return on investment with him? And I lean towards probably not. So from a business perspective, does it make sense to sign him? No. But he's also been through all these trials and tribulations with his entire team since he's been in the NFL. And now all of a sudden he's finding success because lo and behold, the Commanders hit on a quarterback. And it's like, if you would have taken Scary Terry and put him on any other team, like what could he have been? So I think all is to say, I do think they will figure out some sort of contract deal for him to make sure that, he sticks around because the team needs him. I mean,
what they should do is sign a contract that is exactly the same length as Jaden Daniels' rookie deal. And they say, okay, when we have to pay Jaden Daniels, no promises. But until then, you're going to be here. And I think that would make some sense because it's the ideal situation is that you have a young quarterback that you don't have to pay a ton of money, so you surround him with experienced weapons that are capable of running the offense. And this is exactly that. So if they can come to that arrangement where it's like, stick it out for another couple of years, maybe don't take a 4-year deal, take a 2-year deal, and let's see what we can do with this team, and then we'll reevaluate then when we have to pay Jaden Daniels $1 billion.
Yeah. Going back to Brian Robinson very quickly, I don't want to sit here and speculate on teams because that could be any team. In your mind, does he become like a Jag, just a guy for whatever team he goes to?
Yeah, I see him. I mean, he is kind of a workhorse back in terms of his ability to take punishment, right? He can get on the field and he can stay on the field and he's reliable in that way. But again, he's gonna be one of those guys that I could see him being one of 2 running backs in like a Jim Harbaugh offense. Like I don't see him being the 1A guy on any team. I see him sort of being a facilitator, and he's good and he's worth having on your roster, but he's not someone you're going to pay a bunch of money for or sign a long-term deal for.
Agreed. I think the Cowboys kind of come to mind as a potential team because their running back room is in disarray. Will Javonte Williams work out? Will Jaden Blue work out? Let's add fuel to the fire and bring Brian Robinson in because I think he will turn into just a guy with whatever team he goes to. So John Metchie, former Texans wide receiver, was traded to the Eagles. The trade was Metchie and a 2026 6th-rounder for the tight end Harrison Bryant and a 5th-rounder. So I bring this up. Obviously, it's trade. We're talking about trades. This trade did happen. Are the Eagles really looking for a strong wide receiver 3 is my question, because I want to highlight the fact that just last year, they did something very similar for Jahan Dotson from the Commanders. So it seems to me like they're really trying to hit on a really strong wide receiver 3, and maybe they saw something in John Metchie, and Jahan Dotson is not working out like they'd hoped, and obviously they kind of did a similar trade where Jahan Dotson did not cost them a ton, neither did John Metchie, but it seems to me like all signs are pointing towards they're trying to really find like a diamond in the rough wide receiver 3 that they can kind of hit on. Is that fair to say, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And honestly, I know Jahan Dotson, RIP, I love that guy, and I wished he was going to be so much better. But you can't look at any move that Howie makes and scoff at it. So if he saw something in John Metchie, he said this guy beat cancer, let's let him beat the Cowboys with us. I don't blame him. So I'd say worth a shot. And John Metchie had some highlights. I mean, he was obviously nothing super special on the stat sheet, but he's someone that you could look at him and see, okay, like I see the vision, and I could see him facilitating a good wide receiver 3 option. Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about Breece Hall because this trade rumor is heating up rather quickly. There's been a lot of talk that Breece Hall is a trade candidate and may not end up on the Jets by the end of the season. Their head coach Aaron Glenn had even stated multiple times that this is going to be running back by committee. And Breece Hall was asked about this. James Cook got his payday, Kyron Williams got his payday, and I think when you look at those 2 running backs, and then you put Breece Hall in that conversation, I think Breece Hall is the most talented of the 3 running backs, and they've found their paydays, and Breece was asked about it, and Breece said, hey, look, those guys, they performed and they did a phenomenal job, and I'm happy for them. I know I have more to offer, and he really, I think in a professional way, just kind of said I haven't been given the opportunity to really showcase that on this team. And so he didn't say the verbatim, but I think that was kind of the underlying message he was trying to relay across when the reporter asked him about it. And so, what happens here with Breece Hall? Are we hoping he goes to another team? Do we think between those 3 running backs, is he the best one in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make an argument for it that his talent level his ceiling is probably higher than both of them. You also have to recognize that all the success that he had was with the Jets, and the Jets, their offensive line has always been, just kind of okay, and their coaching, obviously, we know the whole organization has just been a little bit in turmoil, and he was still sort of a diamond in the rough in that situation. But I also, first of all, I don't blame any player that has played on the Jets for wanting to leave the Jets. So that's first things first. Is it's difficult to say, hey, Breece, stick it out with us because we understand what that means. Also, the Jets, Breece Hall is one of those players that the Jets want to keep, but with the new coaching staff, I think they're thinking long-term. It's the same reason why I think they got Justin Fields, where it's like, this is a guy who maybe he can do something, but they're already thinking about upcoming quarterbacks that they can draft. They're already thinking about ways to revamp this team. And unfortunately, despite a lot of the talent that's on the team, it just hasn't come together. So they're thinking long-term instead of short-term. And when you're thinking long-term, a running back is rarely in that conversation at all. So I think they're more of just like, hey, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, good luck to you. Like, we wish you nothing but the best, but we're not going to spend a ridiculous amount of money to keep you on a team that's going to win 5 games. Like, it's just, It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I agree. I think in the probable outcomes, Breece Hall will not be a Jet by the end of the season. Maybe it's a mid-season trade before the deadline, but they're not going to re-sign him, and so they're going to want to capitalize on his name value, on what he can do. And now the interesting thing for them is how much playing time do we give him to showcase that he still has a lot of gas left in the tank and can do all these different things for us to try and increase his trade value. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. And who knows, maybe he gets traded before the season even starts. As somebody who owns him on dynasty format, I'm really praying that he does not week 1 he's not a Jet, because I think this team there's just a lot going on. So
yeah, if he can get some playing time fantasy wise though, like, you could really see Justin Fields dumping it off to that guy all the time.
The problem is Justin Fields doesn't really, historically doesn't dump off to the running back position a lot, which is where Breece Hall finds a lot of use as a pass catching upside.
But I think that's what the offense is going to be, is Justin Fields roll out of the pocket and take your easy targets, because they know he's going to struggle throwing the ball downfield. So I think that in the past, Justin Fields has been like, I'll just pick the ball up and run with it. But now he's got, Garrett Wilson, he's got Breece Hall. Like, he's got some weapons now that he can actually offload to. I think that if they give him playing time and it's not a committee so much that, Breece Hall gets 9 touches a game, I think he could, fantasy-wise, do some stuff on that team.
We'll see. Scotty, let's tackle the division review here, division breakdown rather. So we're going to be talking the NFC North, that being the Bears, Vikings, Packers, and Lions. Let's just start with the Bears. We kind of talked about Caleb Williams a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on the Bears? And this is, in my opinion, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but I think this is the hardest division in the NFL right now. And it's going to be a tough division because all these teams are, aside from the Bears, have been historically very good. And the Bears have a lot of promise. We're a Bears podcast this year, so we'll start with them.
I think if you plucked the Bears out of this division and put them in almost any other division, I would be super high on them as a team. I think they're going to be better. Despite my reservations a little bit about bowing to Ben Johnson right now, I do think that obviously he's an upgrade from the previous coaching staff. I think that the offense is going to look better. You got another year with a once rookie quarterback who's got some experience now. They really only have up to go. The only problem is that the expectations are so high, and they're going to be playing some of the best teams in the NFL all season long. So it's like you could almost see it collapsing just a little bit, where it's sort of like being a Nebraska fan, where you get Dylan Raiola and you're like, oh my God, we're going to win the freaking national title, and then you're just like, it was marginally better, and that's good. And you almost have to bring your expectations down. I think Bears fans have to do that a little bit, where this is a team that's going to be better, they're going to be competitive, but they're just not at the caliber of the other teams in this division, I don't think. And I think in all likelihood they're going to finish 4th or 3rd in the division.
Okay, so I'll ask this question. Is Ben Johnson the real deal in your mind?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think everything that we've seen from him is there's nothing not to love, but I think that it's the same thing I've said about Dan Campbell. Like, everybody loves Dan Campbell, but that roster was so talented, so much so that they could lose half their defense and still win, 15 games or whatever they won. That roster was so deep and so talented that I think it makes everybody look good, which is a great problem to have. But when you switch to a new team now, you have to prove it on your own. And I think he's got the opportunity, and I do believe it's going to be a better team, and we're going to see, because again, we're comparing him to Matt Eberflus. So
that was going to be my next point is is Ben Johnson the real deal? I think it's TBD, But I think, if you look at the barometer of what is the real deal, and if Matt Eberflus and Matt Nagy are your barometer, I think Ben Johnson is leaps and bounds better and is the real deal if we're using those other two head coaches as a metric. Because, some of the things that I really like from Ben Johnson that I've seen is, we mentioned it at the top of the show where he was talking about like the sloppiness, and, he's not willing to put up with that. He's not like, okay, we're not polished. We're not where we need to be. And, Caleb Williams, granted it's preseason, comes out and looks really good. He looks really good, and we've seen him make some really great throws. He's reading the defense a lot better. He actually has an offensive mind that seems to know gives the appearance that he knows what he's doing. And I think this team is, once again, in a difficult division, but I think it's going to be a really good team that Bears fans can be excited for years to come. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, I think Ben Johnson is the real deal, because historically what we've seen as far as these head coaches has been just a clown show, and I think Ben Johnson is far from that. So I'll say yes.
We really just need, in order for Ben Johnson to have to put a flag in this season and call it a success, we don't need him even necessarily to be a playoff team, I don't think. What we need to see is offensive production that looks tight-knit. We need to see Caleb Williams look like an NFL quarterback and not like he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off like he did last season. So his primary focus is get everybody in line and develop Caleb Williams. And if he can do those things, regardless of the record, it's going to be a successful season.
Agreed. Do you think Caleb Williams will take the leap this year?
I think so. I think we've seen enough out of him throughout his collegiate career, and even last year. I mean, there was a lot of times where he looked like a doofus, but it was the offense. I mean, it was the system. He was running around. You could tell that. I can't remember exactly what was said, but at some point in time, he mentioned watching film with the new coaching staff, and he's like, "Yeah, they never told me to do this," or something like that. Like it was like
they weren't watching film with him.
Yeah, you could just tell that he's got like an adult in the room who can actually help him progress, and he hasn't had that yet. And we've seen him have enough success, throughout his collegiate career and into last season, that we know the talent is there. You just got to get sort of the mind right, and you have to install him into a competent offense, and I think he can do it. So I do think we're going to see a better Caleb Williams. Yes.
Okay. I take this with a grain of salt. Ryan Poles hinted that he thinks Luther Burden may be their best wide receiver. I'm not buying anything that a GM is saying as far as who he thinks their best wide receiver is going to be. Now, if this was Ben Johnson saying this, then maybe I'd take more stock in it. But I still think DJ Moore is the best wide receiver currently on that roster, and that might change by the end of the year. But I'm still largely vested in DJ Moore and his ability.
Yeah, when you can have as much success as he had with the Panthers, yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So
he's earned it. He's earned the respect.
He has. Let's go to the Vikings. Is the JJ plus the JJ being Justin Jefferson and Mr. JJ McCarthy? Is this the secret sauce here? The Vikings this is a really interesting scenario. I mean, to be quite honest with you, we had JJ McCarthy as a rookie quarterback last season who never got to take a snap because he went under the IR. Sam Darnold resurgence came out of nowhere, and this really showcased to me in my mind that Kevin O'Connell is in fact the real deal. Kevin O'Connell, we've seen it time and time again. Nick Mullins, the Pastronaut, Kirk Cousins, like Kevin O'Connell knows how to get the best out of his quarterbacks. And if he chose J.J. McCarthy, and then, this was a conversation we had last season as well. Will the Vikings re-sign Sam Darnold? They found success with Sam Darnold. What do we think they're going to do here? Even though they just drafted this first-round quarterback, do we think they're going to keep Sam Darnold, or do we think they're going to move on from him? And the fact that they did move on from him and kept J.J. McCarthy, is that telling in your mind that this is going to be a competent offense ran by Kevin O'Connell? J.J. McCarthy is the real deal, and the Vikings are just going to pick up where they left off last year? Or do you have concerns because J.J. is a rookie? I still call him a rookie, even though he's not, because this in my mind is his rookie season. So do you where do you come off on all this, and what do you think of the Vikings going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to temper your expectations a little bit with a quarterback that we've never seen play in a real NFL game. So it's like there's only so much speculation that you can reasonably do. But I said it last year when he got drafted there that he was going to be the best quarterback in the class, which, with how good some of the rookies ended up being, I don't know if that was true. But the reason I said that is because of the situation. You've got the best wide receiver in the NFL, or in that conversation. You've got one of the best coaches in the NFL that has demonstrated time and time again that he can develop quarterbacks. Like, this is a great situation for you to enter the NFL into. So I really do think that JJ is going to look good. again, the problem is just this division. I mean, it's just brutal. You have to play, an up-and-coming Caleb Williams. You got to play Jordan Love and the Packers. You got to play the Lions. Like, it's just brutal. So every win that they get is really going to have to be earned. And that's why, we'll talk about the Vegas odds once we go through all the teams, but I'm kind of surprised with how high people are on the Vikings, just given how many unknowns and the competition that they have to play. Like, this is just going to be such a brutal division that anyone really could pull ahead in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and we'll pocket this conversation for the Vegas odds. But are you excited for the Vikings this year, or are you more leaning in the optimistic route or the pessimistic route? Excuse me.
No, I'd say I'm leaning optimism.
Okay.
Again, I temper my expectations because I don't really know what it's going to look like, but it's just difficult with O'Connell there and with JJ that a quarterback's not going to have success. Like, you just have to expect that it's going to look good.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the Packers. I mean, the Packers are the Packers are the Packers are the Packers. They've always, I don't know how they do it. I don't know the secret sauce or the formula here. They seem to hit on every single quarterback that they roster. I mean, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now, Jordan Love. And so this year they went and got Matthew Golden in the first round. A lot of people were very surprised by this as they did not have Matthew Golden as a first-round wide receiver. And then you look at the wide receiver room for this Packers organization, and it's kind of a bunch of wide receiver twos. And that's kind of where a lot of people had Golden at as well. Jaden Reed, you've got Christian Watson, you've got, I can't even remember there's a bunch of them. Dontavian Wicks. But
that lends credence to what you're saying, is that they're spreading the ball out because they don't have that alpha who demands every target. So they get the ball all around. So it's my opinion that this Packers team is going to be really, really good, not great. So I don't think they're at the level of the Lions. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but this is a team that Jordan Love has looked good enough that they can beat any team on any given week. And so it's just going to be, it comes down to the division, that are they going to win these tough games against top tier opponents that they have to play over and over and over and over again. So I see them being just outside of the elite tier. Like, you talk about the Chiefs and the Bills and the Eagles and the Lions. I think they're just outside of that tier, that they're going to be very fun. They're going to be interesting. I just don't think they're quite there yet. They need a couple more pieces.
Okay, and let's round this out with the Lions. I mean, you've already pretty much expressed your thoughts on the Lions and the dominant roster. Do you envision that this Lions team is going to take a step back or continue that dominance that we saw last year? And, obviously the headlining thought process here is they lost both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson to, go run different organizations. They lost their center, their all-pro center. But aside from that, it seems largely like a reload from a personnel standpoint. And obviously they have both coordinators are new. Where are you at with the Lions? Do you think they're going to continue, or do you think they're going to maybe gas out a little bit and not finish nearly as high as they did last year?
Well, here's the thing. When you set the standard as high as they did last year, it's difficult for any team to match that. So it's difficult for any team to have a ton of success and then come out and just keep the ball rolling. With that said, this is a roster that can do it. And I really don't put a ton of stock. Obviously, switching coordinators, all that stuff it is what it is. I mean, it's going to create some issues, no doubt about it. But I just think that the talent, this is, in my mind, competing with the Eagles for the best roster, top to bottom, in the NFL. And when you have that talent, it is so much easier to do everything. And so I think stepping in as a coordinator, walking into your office for the first time, you're like, holy shit, look at all the weapons I got. I can do anything. You've got a head coach that very clearly, as we saw with Ben Johnson, is just like, yeah, do whatever you want. Do crazy shit. Throw it to the guard. I don't care. So it's like you have all this opportunity to just be creative and do your thing with some of the best players in the NFL. And again, I go back to what I said first, which is it's difficult to recreate that level of success, but we have to remember that the Lions created that level of success in the first place with all of their starters missing on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's kind of a wash. Yeah, you have these new coordinators. Yeah, you lost your all-pro center, but last year you won 15 games and you were missing half your starters. So you're going to have more familiar faces on the field this year than you did to round out last year. I think this team is still a Super Bowl contender. I think this team is going to win the division. I think they are in the elite tier of football teams in the NFL right now.
Okay, well, I will let you know Vegas agrees with you as far as the division is concerned. They have the Lions finishing at the top of the division at plus 160 odds, followed right behind the Packers at plus 250. They have the Vikings at third position at plus 300, and then they have the Bears finishing last place at plus 500. You mentioned you have the Lions at the top, so we can go ahead and check that one out. Do you agree with the Vegas odds and totality, or do you see some movement here as far as how this division is going to shake out? And I let me preface by saying, before you answer this, I really think, you can make an argument for a lot of different teams in a lot of different divisions. And this is going to be a cop-out thing that I'm going to say here, but I think this is largely going to be an any given Sunday for this entire division, which is, it's fun. It's difficult. If you're a fan of one of these teams, it's got to suck because the entire division is, in a really difficult spot as far as the competition level. So I will let you now answer the question. I just wanted to preface by saying that.
Yeah. I mean, what you said is 100% true. If you're going to go put money on a division winner this season, choose any other division because holy shit. This honestly, when I look at this division top to bottom, what comes to mind is injuries are going to decide the outcome for the whole division. Because you get a couple key injuries on any of these teams, and it is going to be so difficult to win those tough games. And I really do think that it sucks to say, but it's almost out of the hands of the team. It's like, are you going to get dealt a good hand this season? And if you do, then you very well could be competing to win the division. And if you don't, like Jordan Love goes out for a few weeks might be all it takes to completely knock you out of contention in this division. So it really is going to come down to a combination. It does for every team, but especially in this division. Good luck, and then performing on the field when you need to perform in these really tough games. And we're going to see a lot of really fun games in this division. These division rivalries are going to outclass every other division in the league.
I'm excited for it.
It's going to be epic. So I guess the roundabout way of saying is, I think if I were to put money on it, I would put money on the Lions winning. I would put money on the Bears finishing fourth, but it's going to be really, really, really close. And then I think it's a coin flip for the Vikings or the Packers, depending on if J.J. McCarthy performs as well as people hope.
Gotcha. Interesting. So I'll share Allen's and then I'll share mine. So Allen actually has the Packers finishing the division at the top, followed by the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings. And, the reason that Allen believes that the Vikings will finish at the bottom of the division is he does believe that J.J. McCarthy sucks and the Vikings are going to struggle for that. So I wanted to share that.
He's going to be right. But
he does. He will be right. I don't think he is right. In fact, I oftentimes peer into my crystal ball at night, Scotty. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I last night I was thinking about the NFC. I knew we were doing the show, and I rubbed my crystal ball, and it was the craziest thing. You're not going to believe it, but I'm just going to share it with you. The Lions do finish at the top of the division. I think that was what the ball told me. Right under the Lions, it was actually the Vikings. Were in second position, followed by the Bears and then the Packers. So that is what my crystal ball has told me, and I tend not to disagree with the crystal ball because it does see into the future. So that is how I believe the NFC North is going to shake out. I think the Packers are going to be at the bottom of the division this year.
It's crazy. This is one of the only divisions that you could make such a good argument for literally any team. And what's really interesting is that they're all probably going to be pretty freaking good, but they also all have major setbacks. Like you look at the Lions and their new coordinators, and then you look at the Packers and they don't have a wide receiver one, and you look at the Bears and Caleb Williams is still a question mark, and they got a new head coach, and then you look at the Vikings and they got a rookie quarterback, and it's like, dude, anything.
There's a lot up in the air. No,
anything could happen.
And I agree. Like that's what I was saying is like I really do think it is going to be any given Sunday. And I think that some of these teams are going to win games that, Vegas does not have them winning. And I think they're going to lose games that Vegas has them winning. And I think that that's just how this division is going to shake out. Like, I think that it's going to be cutthroat. I think it's going to be close. I agree with you. I think that the injuries are a huge concern because in the event that you lose some key pieces, I think that 2 or 3 weeks is going to be the difference maker. I really think it's going to come down to that, so it's going to be fun. I'm so excited for the NFC North. As a Bears podcast this year, bear down, I think is what the Bears fans say.
I don't know. Does that mean I love you?
Here, bear down.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I meant to do that. My hands went to love.
Bears fans, take notes. I want to see everybody doing this in the stands this year. Bear down. Did they do this already, or did you just make this up?
I'm not sure. I think I made it up, but if I didn't, then I would understand because it's bear paw. So I don't know if I made it up. I don't know if Bears fans do it, so I made it up. However, it would not surprise me if the Bears fans did this. I know a Bears fan. I'll reach out to him and see if he can give me some more insight into bear down. But
okay, all right.
In the event that they don't do that, I think we should definitely be bear down.
Bear down.
So. That's how I got it finishing out. It seems like you're mostly in agreement with Vegas. Alan has the Packers finishing at the top. I have them finishing at the bottom. And I think that just goes to show we're very plugged into the NFL. We're very plugged into everything that goes on in the NFL. And the fact that we have so much variety in this division alone, I think just speaks for the difficulty of it. So
yeah, it's going to come down to some injuries and some calls by the referees. So
yes.
Unfortunately, that's where we're at in a really, really tough division. And it's going to make for really exciting football and really fun podcasting.
Couple weeks, baby. Just a couple more weeks and we're going to be there. So I'm excited for it. But Scotty, that's all the time we have. So let's get the heck out of here. I appreciate you doing the show. Hopefully next week we will have the crew of 3 and Alan's gets up from his nap in which he's been podcasting or listening to a podcast and can join us next week. So hopefully he'll be there for that. But I appreciate you, buddy. I love you. And we
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.